Okay, so picture it. The year is 105 AD. You're standing in some dusty frontier camp a million miles from your boring little hometown. Why do you sign up? Maybe you're chasing glory? Sure. Or maybe you just needed a steady paycheck. For a lot of guys, it was the best way to get away from it all. But whatever your reason, you're here. You're ready to enlist.
But here's the thing. Just wanting to join is one thing. Actually getting accepted, that's a whole different story. Because before you can even dream of holding a gladius, you've got to pass the inspection.
All right, so here it is, your first big test. You're standing in front of a recruiting officer, and this is no joke. This is the moment he decides if you're legionary material or not. Your entire future. It all comes down to this. And this guy is looking you up and down, and believe me, he's got a checklist. He's looking for someone about 6 Roman feet tall. That's around 177 centimeters. He's checking for broad shoulders, strong arms and legs, sharp eyes, good hearing. A clean bill of health is a must. But it's not all about brawn. You've got to prove you're a Roman citizen. Then come the questions. Can you read? Can you write? Are you a mason, a carpenter, a blacksmith? Every little skill, even your manners, it all gets noted down. See, they're not just hiring soldiers, they're building a machine, and they need all the right parts. Well, you must have had what they were looking for, because you're in. You're marched in front of an officer to swear the sacramentum, the sacred military oath. You swear your loyalty to the emperor and to Rome. And with those words, everything changes. You're not a civilian anymore. You are a soldier. And boom, a signing bonus. A nice chunk of change hits your hand. Now, here's a little pro tip. Don't blow it all on wine and dice, celebrating with the other new guys, because you're going to find out pretty quick that the army takes its cut. Your gear, your food, your tent, it all gets deducted right from your pay. So you're sworn in, you've got some coin, time to grab a sword and find some glory, right? Whoa, not so fast. Before you ever see a real battle, you have to survive training. This is where they break you down and forge you into something new. This is where the civilian dies and a legionary is born. For the next 4 to 6 months, your life is pure, grueling routine. You're going to march about 30 kilometers a day, in full armor, carrying all your gear. You're going to learn to swim across rivers, in formation. Talk about sink or swim. You'll build fortified camps, and you'll drill with wooden swords and shields that are way heavier than the real thing. Why? So that when you finally pick up your actual gear, it feels as light as a feather. And that quote, it pretty much sums up your new life. It's not about heroic charges. Not yet. It's about sheer, bloody-minded endurance. Sun beating down, rain pouring, slogging through mud, you march. This is how they build the discipline that makes the legions unstoppable. There's absolutely zero room for anyone who can't keep up. But here's something you probably didn't expect. You're not just a soldier. You're an engineer. You'll learn to dig ditches, repair roads, and build forts faster than you thought possible. You have to remember, Rome didn't just conquer the world with its swords, it built it with its shovels. Okay, so you've made it through months of hell. You're finally battle ready. So what's next? Well, now you face your first big career choice. And there are 2 very different paths you can take. On one hand, you can be a meles. That's the backbone of the legion, the standard foot soldier. It's all the hard, dirty work, the marching, the fighting, but the camaraderie is incredible, and there's a nice pension waiting at the end. On the other hand, if you have one of those useful skills they ask about, like if you're a medic or a surveyor, you can become an immunis. That gets you out of the worst of the grunt work, and yeah, you get a little bit more pay. But you want to know the real game changer? The one skill that trumps all the others? It's not strength. It's not even fighting prowess. It's literacy. If you can read and write, my friend, you have basically hit the jackpot. In the massive bureaucracy of the Roman army, a guy who can keep records is priceless. That skill alone could pull you off the front lines and put you on a path to a much comfier and probably much longer career. But no matter what your job is, your whole world shrinks down to the 7 other guys you share a tent with. This is your contuberium. You will eat with them, sleep next to them, march with them, and fight beside them. These guys, they're not just your tent mates, they're your new family, your brothers. Now, if you're smart, disciplined, and maybe just a little bit lucky, you're not going to stay a grunt forever. You can start that long, hard climb up the ladder. You can take the officer's path. But it's not a straight shot up. It's more like a maze of different responsibilities. You might get promoted to tessarius, the guy who sets the watch passwords and schedules. Or maybe a signifer, a huge honor where you carry the cohort standard and also act as its banker. The next big step is optio. Now you're the centurion's right-hand man, the one making sure his orders get followed. And then there's the big one, the role every ambitious soldier dreams of, centurion. You are now the commander of 80 legionaries. But listen, this is not some cushy command post in the rear. Oh no, a centurion leads from the very front, sword out, being the first one into the fray. And that's the catch. The pay is great, the respect is immense. But you are expected, required, to be the first man charging the enemy. This whole lead by example thing is exactly why the casualty rate for centurions was terrifyingly high. It was a job for the brave, and often the dead. But if you survive, if you prove yourself to be one of the toughest, smartest, and luckiest commanders out there, you could become the primus pilus, the first file, the senior-most centurion in the entire legion. For a common soldier, this is it. This is the absolute peak. It's the highest you can climb, because every rank above you is reserved for the nobles and senators back in Rome. So let's fast forward. You did it. You survived the battles, the politics, the brutal campaigns for 25 years. A lifetime. What happens now that your service is finally over? Well, your reward is pretty sweet. You get a huge pension, enough to live out your days in comfort. You're given a plot of good farmland, your very own piece of the empire you spent your life defending. And maybe most important of all, wherever you go, you carry with you the immense respect of the Roman world. You are a veteran. Which brings us right back to the beginning. You were just a kid in a dusty camp, maybe looking for an escape or an adventure. You went through decades of pain, hard labor, and bloody combat. You ended up a respected landowner, a veteran of Rome. So the final question is, looking back on it all, was it worth it?